You are exactly where you need to be to create something only you can create. And the call is not coming from the phone you spend your life connected to. The call is coming from inside the house, from inside of you. It's in you, and our entire society has been structured to keep us disconnected from it. We live in an age where being present, phone down, and heart open, eyes wide and aware is an eccentricity. We live in an age where we are fed until we burst and are taught to stretch our stomachs instead of cleanse our palates. We live in an age where you fit in if you have a hot take, a bold opinion, a loud statement, but only if it is collectively agreed upon by your algorithm and feeds your ego with validation, offering you performative points in the coliseum of judgment that is the internet. We live in an age of overconsumption, the bleak deafening of our senses with more, with blue light and dopamine, with gazes of longing and attempts to fill our hearts with distraction and commiseration. We run away from ourselves by running straight into the eye of the storm, taking in other people's lives as a pastime to forget our own and taking on the weight of the world as a means to surrender to the powerlessness we feel inside of us. We consume. We eat until we're sick and then we wonder why we're not hungry for a nourishing breakfast in the morning. We stay up until our eyes burn and then wonder why the sun feels too bright to absorb. We complain and we cry and then we wonder why it's been so long since we've had a belly laugh that seems like it could heal all of what feels broken. We consume. And every day that goes by where we live our lives half asleep and the caffeinated neglect to ourselves and our inner being, we drift further from our senses and our ability to wake ourselves up. Any act of joy seems offensive in this state of affairs. Any bubble of laughter seems uncalled for in this economy. Any ideal of hope is simply a charmed ideal of those living in a different world. We consume, and we stumble right into a bad dream that we've created, a slippery slope that has become comforting to slide down, a world that does not wait, and a life that goes on and forgets to take us with it. Recently, I made the decision to stop scrolling. I stopped scrolling only after I felt the effects of the poison into my bloodstream that was this bad dream. You don't even realize that you're in it until you wake up from it. I battle, like everyone else, with this addiction to this device that I take everywhere with me and can't live without, counting my steps because they don't count if it doesn't count them, measuring my productivity with how many times I touch it or not, checking the comments section and weighing how I measure up in this world. I struggle with the half-awake impulses to reach for Instagram or TikTok as soon as my consciousness awakens, even if online consumption does seep into my brain and sow itself into my mind, fogging up my clarity and making me feel like half of myself. Since I know that I am sensitive to it and addicted to it, I've tried to set boundaries. No phone 1 hour in the morning or before bed. No senseless scrolling throughout the day, but the weekend that TikTok was set to be banned, I gave myself free rein to scroll as much as I pleased. Within the matter of a morning, I felt myself glued to this device, working out my right thumb as I numbed myself from the feeling of living in a dystopia, granting my delusions further validation with every video, every comment section checked to validate my own internal opinion, every impulse I had to escape and numb and consume. I fed. And I couldn't get enough. I let myself fully and completely dive straight into the algorithm's identity and quickly found myself calling it my own, voicing opinions that I wasn't even sure were mine, spreading the news I'd heard about on TikTok, feeling this sore heart that was over the entire world inside of my body and letting it beat as I consumed. I couldn't peel myself away, and I didn't want to. I didn't have to. If TikTok was going to go away, I was a proud consumer. And in the 40 hours that I allowed myself to get lost in this vortex of an algorithmic echo chamber, I felt this profound heaviness overcome my whole life. The darkness, the pain, and the weight of the world, I felt, and I felt it in feelings of hopelessness and powerlessness. I felt the collective sorrow for the state of the world, and I allowed it to filter into my bones and create a deep melancholy that just weighed me down and softened my voice. But my voice didn't sound soft. It felt like I was screaming in the way that you do when you don't feel heard, but you have so much inside of you that is wanting to come out. Except the more I complained, the more I felt into this collective misery of powerlessness, the more I drifted from any sense of hope I had to overcome it. It took me a few days to recover from this hole that I fell into, and I started to realize what I'd trained my algorithm for. Videos that made me fearful and hopeless and scared. Conspiracies and theories that were so easy to see and believe in and get lost in. I realized that scrolling this way and consuming this way made me a victim. A victim to this world and to its injustice, and in that state of being, the injustice had won. Because it stole my spirit. So I vowed to stop scrolling, and I vowed to create more than I consumed and to only engage with content that truly made me feel good, if at all. This is very hard to do. I'm not saying to blind yourself from the realities that we live in. What I'm saying is that the way that we cope by ingesting everyone's version of reality, everyone's bleak perspective of the harsh truth we might live in, is not how we cope with it. It's not how we deal with it. We cope with this harsh reality by finding our own hope, by not allowing systems and structures of power to break our spirit, by making us helpless victims whose voices are sore from never being heard. We cope with this and we rise above it by resisting the disempowerment that it is designed for, waking up to that and taking our power back by deciding to create from it rather than poison ourselves with it. I believe that we were all given some gift. Inside of all of us, there is a receptive container that we can choose to fill with joy as a radical act of revolution against a system that wants us to suffer. That system wants us to stay small and choose to resist joy and embrace the idea that joy is an illusion and has no place in a space of injustice. When we scroll, we embrace that falsehood and we keep ourselves stuck and small and unable to move from the bones of our blues. When we create, we surrender it to something greater than us. We realize that we are in control only of ourselves, the way that we show up, respond, react, and transmute what it is we've decided to surrender to. When we create, we clear space to feel what is buried inside of us, and we surrender all of the pain that is not ours to hold. And what do we do with that empty space inside of our brains and body and being? We use our receptive containers to receive messages that allow us to transmute the feelings inside of us, tuning into a collective consciousness far more powerful than the ones of suffering, fear, and victimization. We use our suffering as our own muse, as a statement of togetherness when we decide to create instead of consume. When we decide to create instead of consume, we realize that it is the only choice we have in every moment of every day. Are you responding to your life? Are you communing with it? Are you an active participant of it? Or are you sleepfully surrendered to the suffering that wants to keep you small and voiceless? In every moment, we decide whether or not we create or we consume, and it goes far beyond our addiction to our phones. It is mirrored in every day of our life when we choose to, in the company of a loved one, open our eyes to them, to fully hear them, to be there with them, to not invite this deadened, inanimate object into the intimate space of you and another being, to call it for what it is. It is mirrored in every day when we open our eyes to the world and either reach for something filled with light that will fill us with light, or choose to take another step into the echo chamber of sameness. When I stopped scrolling, I started to thank the pain. I started to realize that it was there to teach me something, to show me something, to give me something. I stopped resisting it and I allowed it to come in. I freed myself by deciding to fully embrace it. When you create, you know that nothing lasts forever, that feelings and emotions and even generations that will go down in history are temporary, because you were born to alchemize and you commune with being born to alchemize when you create. We were born to transmute. We were created to create. When I stopped scrolling, I started to realize that each one of us is exactly where we are, perfectly positioned to experience our unique set of problems and circumstances and joys so that we can create uniquely from them, that our power in this experience is to experience, to create from our experience, to learn, unlearn, and to teach each other with our art. How can we expect to do that if we don't devote ourselves to living our lives awake? If we sit in the numbness of resistance and scroll our lives away, what good can we do? When I stopped scrolling, I stopped internalizing the voices of other people around me. I started to realize that what I want to do and what I want to create is not even about me at all, that somehow, by the grace of God, I've been given the unique ability to receive the intuition to have a creative impulse, and by the grace of God, I listen to it. By the grace of God, I listen to my creative impulses and they come through me, but that is not about me. Even if they're inspired by my own feelings, my own internal world, my own life experiences, the only reason that they are being asked to be expressed through me is because they deserve a place in this world, or else they wouldn't exist, or else they wouldn't ask. Why do we so easily trust conspiracies and marketing, but struggle to hear the voice of our own creative whisper as a source of truth? Why do we all have different dreams? Why do some of us want to be a famous actor or a musician, and others want to live a quiet life on a farm, feeding the cow and walking the dog? Why do some of us crave romantic love and search our lives for it, and others search for our spark in travel and adventure and spontaneity? We're all looking for the same thing, the ability to live awake and embodied and to feel more deeply, yet we reject the feelings that are uncomfortable to hold, and in that, we reject our own unique ability to alchemize them in the way the world most needs. Your pain is the source of your gift. What you create and what you want to create is not about you. It is about the collective devotion to something greater than the suffering this world will suffocate us with if we let it. Our lives, messy and undone and beautiful and chaotic, have asked us to create the perfect creations for the conditions we are in right now. Our lives are always asking us to take a big gulp of air from them and see what comes out as we exhale, see what we do with it, see how we transmute it. But when we scroll, when we consume, when we numb and shut ourselves off, we become the same and we stay the same. We start to see less individuality and more collective dreams of escape. We start to see less heart beating and more heart bleeding. Our lives have been asking us to live them, express through them, to create into them, and we are the most foolish motherfuckers to not listen to that call. How senseless of us to have a divine intuition, an impulse to write something, sing something, play something, create something, and not follow it. How wasteful of us to take a long look at our existence and prioritize scrolling and sleeping and commiserating at a desk that we feel deadened at, rather than listening to our impulse to create. To look at others who are creating and say, I wish I could do that, is the boldest lie you could tell yourself. To look at others who are living your dreams and say, well, they're just lucky. No, they just listened. To deny the requests of our soul, of our inner child, of our most pure, to close your eyes and ears to the whispers of God that asks you to create, is the greatest tragedy. When we consume and we consume and consume, we look for ourselves at the bottom of a bottle inside the bed of another and fall deeper into paralysis. When we create, we return home. We see that we are who we've always been and always were looking for.